Thank you for doing this. You've been doing the budget thread every year on Twitter. I've been following for the past 2 to 3 years to understand what is actually happening in the budget. I mean, those puns actually help to go through the boring budget that happens. But we thought it'll be a good idea to just speak to you to understand what do you look for in a budget, how to understand the budget. Let me start by asking, what's a budget? Why is it such a big event?
That's interesting. It's actually lesser of a big event than it used to be in the past, because in the past a lot of the economy was actually controlled by the government, its own spending, and therefore a lot of downstream activities would happen only because of the budget. That means the budget gave incentive to some sector that would do well. If the budget reduced your taxes, you were happy. If the budget increased your taxes, you were sad. All of those things, some of those elements still remain, but now it's lesser. So, give you an example, GST is indirect tax. Government earns now half of its money from indirect taxes. Half of its tax revenue comes from indirect taxes. If it does that, then GST is not even a part of the budget anymore. That means it's part of the GST Council, which meets every month or 2 months or whatever, and then decides what to do, and the states get a part to play and all that. Given this, one part of the revenue source is not determined by the budget. Another one is direct taxes, which by and large remain stable. I mean, they've gone up recently, which is a problem, but I think more or less people have expected roughly some small things will change here and there, but nothing much. Even indirect taxes, in the direct tax framework, corporate taxation was changed outside the budget. It was changed in September 2019.
Right. The biggest,
The 25%,
yeah,
brought down from 35% to 25%. That happened outside of the budget. So the budget itself is not as important anymore. But what a budget is essentially a framework to say this is where we think we will spend on in the next year. This is where we think we'll receive revenue from the next year. And based on the difference, I have to finance the difference. I will issue so many bonds, and I will do so much. I will expect so much money to come from dividends and so on, giving the country an idea of exactly how they're going to plan for the next year. And that may be, oh, you know what, this sector, no, it needs very weak, it needs some help. We'll put some incentives there. We'll give them either some tax incentives, or we'll give them some PLI, production linked incentives or something like that. So that's an expenditure from the government. But the government is explicitly telling you that if you invest here, we'll give you money. The same thing in taxation. They might say, oh, you know what, if you're less than 12 lakh rupees, then you don't have to pay any tax. Oh, very good. That means I can change. So if from 2 years ago, if you had a lot of money in, say, different sources, and now you're saying, oh, 12 lakh rupees is tax free, so I can put 1.5 crores, 8% fixed deposit. I will have to pay no tax. I have no other income. So this is change. Your thought process can change in terms of how you react to the budget. That is how the budget has a significance. But also it gives you a signal, oh, we want to do this over the next 5 years. They did this railway modernization over 5 years. They said we'll spend 100,000 crores per year. So you know that India is going to spend that much over for. So they do that for the road program. I'll spend 400,000 crores on roads. I will spend PLI program. We'll spend 100,000 crores. So you get an idea. Oh, 100,000 crores is not going to be all of it this year. Maybe only this year 20,000 crores. The next year 80,000 crores. So then you get an idea of where the trajectory is of spending. So it's not just 1 year. It's also the signal of where the government is actually moving towards.
right. I'm curious to know, like, there were two things that you mentioned that in the past few decades, government used to do a lot of spending and that has come down. The government still makes up a large chunk of the GDP, right?
I think 10 to 14% only now. So the agriculture is about 5 to 10%. The government spending maybe 10 to 20%. State government spending, if you add, maybe 25%. But it has come down quite significantly over the years.
Got it. The other thing, just curious about this. Does any other country get so much excitement or hype around the budget as much as India?
Not particularly. Budgets were actually a phenomenon started from the British times. Even the British budget is not considered as big now, because every country says, listen, we will give you some budget, but then we'll keep doing things in the middle of the year. We may do tariffs, we may do this, we may do that. All of these things happen interim, right? So it's like a reactionary thing. India, the budget is big only because of this thing. It's also very good because you get more time to react when certain things change. COVID happened, the government had to change things. They can't wait for the next budget, right? So they will make changes immediately.
Right.
Those changes anyway happen immediately. India, it's I think big because of tradition. But beyond that, and that's why my budget thread is mostly bad jokes. It's like I know it's not very important for us in the long term to keep focusing on only the budget. So you got to make it a little more fun and entertaining. That's how it is. It's a little
That
bit,
helps also.
yes. I mean, it's very boring otherwise. What do you do knowing that some veterinary college in Kerala has got 100 crores more as grants?
Right.
Honestly,
Fair.
not
Fair.
fun.
But then what do you, I mean, there are still things that are, incremental to the economy that happens in the budget. What do you closely listen to in the budget? And what do you like choose to ignore? Like something like you mentioned just now.
Yeah, so the broad systems are good. So when you get a trajectory of where the government is actually looking to spend, so they're saying, oh, okay, if they're saying, oh, we want to empower women, but the scheme to empower women has, I don't know, 1,000 rupees a month per child. This is per girl child. This is not going to empower women. But on the other hand, if I say a woman entrepreneur can get a loan at say how 100 basis points or 1% lower than anybody else or lower than otherwise, the government will subsidize that 1% if the woman entrepreneur reaches 5 or 10 crores of turnover. So this is great because then the women entrepreneurs can benefit. I think that is, then you put a budget of say 10-15,000 crores for that. Based on that, you can see how it has to happen the next year and encourage them and so on. That is a good thing. On the other hand, if the government simply says, I'm going to put more trains to some location or the other, and that's politically driven, that is not very important. So, but the more important thing is right now there are problems, for instance, that India is facing. Foreign investors are leaving. Are you changing the policies? India is the only country in the world that charges foreign investors a tax in India for investing in Indian stocks or Indian companies, capital gains or Indian
Right.
debt also. No other country charges it. We are an aberration in comparison to the rest of the world. FIs have been leaving, and perhaps because they have other choices, and perhaps because India is overvalued, whatever it is. But at least you can get to a point where you're equal to the rest of the world. They'll always leave for high valuation, but you shouldn't leave because, oh, yeah, why go to India, boss? There's some taxation bullshit over there that we don't want. Why should we do that? Maybe if we're changing that, that is a huge policy change, right? So I would like to see that kind of a thing, saying, okay, are we changing policy to become more attractive to the rest of the world, to for our own entrepreneurs to become more and more business oriented? Are we promoting certain sectors in? Are we doing less populist things?
For example,
I mean, for instance, if the government says, see, anyway, the government buys so much food from the farmers, right? Rice and wheat we buy much more than we need, much more, like the order of 3x, 4x more than we need. So we distribute some of it, but rest of it rots in storage or is kept in storage. This is a waste of money, but you can't change because so many farmers are doing wheat and rice. Can you change that to say, okay, make other things? I'll buy that. I will reduce my rice and wheat thing, so that. But on the other hand, in every policy, the government simply says, oh, we'll increase it. So, to please the farmers, we'll increase the buying. So, what's the point of increasing buying in areas where you're already buying more than the market requires, right? So, you want to reduce that. You want to tell people there are other alternatives than agriculture because you want to create industry, you want to create local economies, increase the local economy. So, anything that helps you increase local economies are fantastic. Like, for instance, logistics changes. We've already done that. We've set up roads, we've set up rail, and all of that. The UPI is a great financial logistics framework, which means I don't have to transport cash as much. All these are useful initiatives. Some of them have happened outside the budget. But if the government pushes more, cold chain logistics India is still very weak. When you get your ice cream delivered on, your
Blinkit or
Blinkit or
yeah.
Swiggy or whatever, you know that half the time it's melted. Why? Because they don't have proper cold chain. And in India, cold chain is a pain. So we should be promoting cold chain. Cold chain means even the farmers can keep tomatoes for longer times, right? Then even if it is like it goes from 10 days to 40 days, that changes the dynamics quite this thing. In cold chain, you have to freeze also. Meats and non-veg is better, has to be frozen, otherwise it gets bacteria. So the any time in the whole collection from the source to the destination, if the thing has unfrozen and frozen, it creates room for bacteria to grow and therefore it become unhealthy. The government should promote more of these things. If the government changes any of these topics, I think that is the thing I latch on to, saying, oh, okay, there's a thought. Sometimes not all thoughts come in. Like in 2014, I think, when it first started, the first budget after that had a talk about
You that was the first time. Sorry, I missed it.
that was the first time the government talked about increasing the shipping, because India is a we like it's a peninsula, right? So you have a large amount of surface area connected to the sea.
See. Yeah.
So why aren't we using the oceans? Like, why don't we have ship-based transport? Why are you only taking transport which is train or road or plane? Can't you transport things or people by ship? Countries like Norway, which also have a large thing, they have a huge marine business. So whether it is fishing at one level, commercial, or it is just people transporting goods transport, it happens over the seas. But they try talking about it in 2014, it's 2026, nothing much has happened.
But there has been money going into shipbuilding, right?
Shipbuilding mostly from the defense angle, but not shipbuilding for charters. For so, how many ships do you hear made in India or even operated in India that do Bombay to Goa, Goa to Trivandrum, or
Hinterland is weak
uh,
in that way.
I don't know about that, but I think pleasure cruises. I mean, we travel for pleasure in so many places. Why won't we take pleasure cruises? And the number of cruise operators are close to zero. I mean, maybe a few handful once in a while things. And India pays crazy amounts of money. And you should see some of these pleasure cruises that happen in the Caribbean. They are like full holiday territory. It's like 17 restaurants, 14 pools, stadiums to play, anything, including cricket in and all that, and they're full all the time because there's enough pleasure cruise happening. I think it's the equivalent of a few hotels is what a cruise is. If we are investing so much in hotels, why don't we invest in cruises? But somehow that is just not materialized. I think maybe some push has to happen, but that would be an interesting point where things could change. Now when they talked about it first, I was very excited, but then I realized there's no follow through. Even within the rivers in India, we could transport things using marine vessels, the ship vessels,
Right.
ships, and all that. But we don't do it. We don't clean up our oceans. We don't dredge them deep enough so that the deeper, heavier ships can
Right.
carry stuff.
Yeah.
These are all problems that I think eventually we'll solve the same way we solve the road problems. But and another big thing is the pollution problem in the north. We're in Bangalore, where there's almost no comparative pollution, but um, in the north, it's a big problem for 4 or 5 months a year. In fact, even in the summers, there's a smoggy layer that keeps happening. Now, why can't we solve this? We can solve this in so many policy ways. If the government clearly wants to make that happen, they can do it. Now, anything on that front would be great.
So anything that is, policy, something incrementally changes in the policy, that's something
Yeah,
to look out
I
for.
mean, it could be like even a 5-year thing. Like, we want to build more nuclear reactors, we want to build more desalination plants, solve the water problem by using the water we have from the ocean rather than depending on rainwater and sea and all that, right? Those are things that I think will be dramatic, and it's very affordable today. A plant of that does desalination that can perhaps, even serve all of Chennai will cost you maybe 6 to 10,000 crores, maybe two plants of that sort. The Chennai already has desalination plants. I'm saying more than that to add. You will but 6 to 10,000 crores is not a big deal of money today for
Right.
us.
Yeah.
So for us, maybe even if we said we'll do a budget of 50,000 crores for this and do multiple, it'd be great. And then it sets up a precedent, right? So every year you set up five, and then you can solve the problems of at least 100 cities.
Right. Right. Interesting. So, as I understand, there's a budget speech and then there are budget documents. So, budget speech gets a lot of attention, but what should be paid attention to? I know you cover the speech, but I mean, what's the
No, the documents are the only meaningful thing. The speech is just so a lot of the speech is forward thinking and poems. So so it's a little bit of I think they
I remember the last thread had that poem or something you'd written in the start of that thread.
that was I think that was so every finance minister comes in and talks about poems in different languages. I think Chidambaram used Tamil. Pranab Mukherjee had once used Bengali, once used a couple of others. I think it was Hindi and uh, and then you have quotes from various sources. Nirmala Sitaram routinely uses Tamil poems, so I think that way, yeah. I mean, there's this probably forms entertainment. Honestly, it is a boring speech, so they have to keep their own legislators also excited and in the game, right? So they are also looking for stuff, and then they're telling you really boring stuff. They have to do something that gives weightage in the speech itself. But the documents are the key part. They are where everything happens. Most of the times, the speech will mention one little word. And when you go and look at the budget documents, you'll be like, oh my God, this is much bigger than she mentioned.
So give me an example.
So there was this whole, have you heard of angel tax?
Yeah.
The angel tax, startup tax. It came in 2011 or so. I think I was the first guy to actually, I wrote even a book about it I called it the angel tax, because it's a tax on angels.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a tax on angels investing into startups, right? So essentially, what it was an innocuous thing saying, oh, if you get money from any investor, and that investor invests at a valuation greater than what we think the valuation should be, then that excess is called income. And when it came, I was shocked, and I think that was the thing that I noticed, and that's why the budget documents are so important, because in the budget documents are the finer details which make a lot of sense. There's something called a memorandum, which has something in plain, understandable text.
Right.
And there is something called a core budget document itself. The memorandum explains what the core
The main
finance
thing
bill
is
is.
right.
So you use the memorandum to understand what has actually happened in the budget. That
Right.
is the core and key thing.
So for anyone looking to properly understand the budget, what's going to happen or what has happened is
From a taxation or a policy change angle in terms of incentives and all that stuff, the specifics will be in the memorandum. The speech will talk about other things, like we are going to benefit agriculture, we're going to invest so much money in something. None of that is in the memorandum.
okay.
So that's just the outlay. That's in an Excel sheet that says
इतना पैसा इधर जाएगा, इतना पैसा इधर जाएगा.
एनिमल हस्बेंड्री को चलो हम 200 करोड़ एक्स्ट्रा देते हैं आपको, कोई उसको मैं समझ, अनलेस यू आर अ पर्सन इन द एनिमल हस्बेंड्री इंडस्ट्री, यू हैव नो आइडिया वेदर 2000 crores is a big amount, small amount, no amount at all, like that. और फिर एजुकेशन में, एजुकेशन विल स्पेंड 10,000 more crores. अब 10,000 crores से कुछ नहीं होगा एजुकेशन में. यू हैव टू स्पेंड एटलीस्ट 50-100,000 crores. बट 10,000 crores बोलने के लिए अच्छा दिखता है. So it's like, it'll be in the speech, we're spending 10,000 crores more on education. But everybody who's in the education sector knows 10,000, yeah, 10,000, come on, you need to spend 10 lakh crores. उसमें 10,000 extra करोगे तो क्या होगा? So it's not going to change anything. So these are the things that are not in the memorandum. They are in the budget, like Excel sheets,
Right.
and slightly mentioned somewhere. And in those documents, you'll find what is interesting. Like maybe they have expected, let us say, 200,000 crores from RBI as dividend. Now, these used to be 60,000 crores just 7-8 years ago. Then the RBI started giving bigger dividend. And now RBI gives 1,50,000, 2 lakh crores. But next year, I think they can give even 3 lakh crores. If the government expects 300,000 crores, that's a different thing from the RBI saying, well, I'll give you 300,000 crores, right? So the government expects means it has probably also talked to the RBI and said, how much do you have? How much can you give me? So that means you already agreed upon a certain thing that's saying we expect so much from the RBI. So I think that those are signals that you'll find from the documents.
Interesting. So you spoke about education and all. Interest cost has been a bigger expenditure than, let's say, education or defense.
Anything else?
So,
2x defense.
So how, is that something worrying or?
Yeah, it's because the government has done all the right things. They brought down inflation. Inflation is now tremendously down. If you haven't paid more for your petrol bill in 5 years, you haven't paid more for your vegetables meaningfully in 5 or 6 years. Even in Bangalore, where vegetables cost more than most of the cities, the cost of potatoes, onions, and all that stuff is very, very nominal in terms of changes. And therefore, inflation isn't zero, but it's a very small amount for these things. Like some things it has changed, like, cabs, transportation costs has increased, education costs have increased, mobile phone bills have come down and then slightly gone up. So all of these elements are slightly different. So with the government has controlled overall inflation to less than 4 or 5, or maybe right now official figures are less than 2%, but let's say 3%. But 3% is a very good number. Now, when inflation comes down, interest rates should come down. But because of high amounts of supply and not enough buyers in that sense, we've had a increase in interest rates in some sort, yields from the government bonds. So government pays 6.5% on its borrowing. If it's borrowing 100 lakh crores, it pays 6 to 7 lakh crores in interest. Now 7 lakh crores is 1.5 times or nearly 2 times the defense budget. So to that extent, we are paying so much more as interest Now, the way this can change is if overall interest rates come down, the government can reduce the interest rate, the amount they pay. But you know what? Right now, interest rates look like they're very slowly coming down. And I think it can change if the government allows more foreign investment to happen into our government debt, removes all these capital gains
Again,
differences.
this ties into the
This ties
point
into
that
those points. So those are the things that the government can do to reduce its interest costs. And also, if RBI were to continue to RBI 3 4 days after the budget, RBI will come up with their policy. If they reduce interest rates even more, the government interest rates will fall.
right. Oh, the
Policy, yeah.
yeah, policy. Got it. Interesting. So now so then what is good spending by the government, and what should be controlled? Uh,
In the end, freebies should be controlled. Even, for instance, I don't believe that the government should make even more things tax free. Like 12 lakhs is already tax free,
the income tax.
income tax wise, So that's why I don't think that has a meaningful amount of help. But I mean, what happens when you
I
do
have
that?
to come back to that question also.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll this, but also there are other freebies. Like for instance, we buy free food from farmers. The farmers get benefited disproportionately. The rich farmers get benefited compared to the poor. There's no study on this because it's politically charged, but the number of people that make enormous amounts of money through government subsidies is huge compared to the number of small farmers who don't make anything. Karnataka, for instance, government buys zero rice and zero wheat if we grow whatever we this thing. Why not? Because most of the rice and wheat are bought from 5 states: Punjab, Haryana, Uttar Pradesh, Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh. I think these are the states. This is where 90% of the government buying comes from. Are there only farmers there? Or it's not anywhere else. So if the government says I'll stretch it to every other place, the Punjab and Haryana farmers will be like, excuse me, you can't buy less from.
Because it'll be spread.
It'll be
Yeah.
spread. They'll be like, you can't buy less from us. So now what the government can't increase its spending to buy from everybody. And already it's buying more than we need. So how can it buy more, right? So if it does those things, I think that's a bad idea. You should reduce the spending in certain places where they've already reached that level, and you should increase in some other places. That's perfectly fine. At the same time, investment is good. Even giving tax benefits to people like you and me is useful because we'll spend the money. We earn the money, we'll spend it. We'll invest it, whatever. Right? And then
So tax cuts are good in that.
tax cuts are good to a certain extent because it helps. If it helps the people who are spenders spend their money. So moving from 7 lakhs to 12 lakhs was good because then 12 lakhs you'll have extra no tax. So whatever you would have otherwise paid as tax, you'll actually go down the wire and spend. Spending is always better than giving government revenue at the same level. At the same time, the inefficiencies of governments are a big problem. So if they do some spending to fix that. They fix the income tax portals over a long time. So now you can file your portal entirely, your taxes entirely online. This is great because the infrastructure that is required to collect taxes is a waste. It's a pain for us, right? We're paying for the salaries of all those people and the collection mechanisms and all that. If you have to pay less to collect the same amount of tax or more tax, then it's even better. GST has helped in a lot in that because it's brought people together in terms of being able to they made tax collectors out of all of us, which is a good thing for the government, right? But over a period of time, I think more and more such measures of investment also, like say, oh, we want semiconductors, so let us give PLI for semiconductors. That causes investment. So if our government gives 100 rupees, somebody else invests 200 rupees. There's 300 rupees now gets spent into the system. That is good because downstream it will generate revenues for the government, right?
More
So,
jobs, more. Yeah.
so spending on investment is a good thing. Spending on freebies is a bad thing. Spending on tax cuts, I mean, not spending like reducing revenue on tax cuts is not necessarily good if it helps only the rich people. It is necessarily good if it helps only the poor people. The truth is always somewhere in between.
Right. So capex, the government doing capex is also a good thing then.
To some extent, yes. So defense, for instance, needs the maximum amount of capex. So that is a good thing because defense capex always benefits industry also, because the stuff that you learn while doing defense is what eventually industry benefits from in the first place. But can the government, for instance, does it help if the government does capex in for random things? I mean, I feel that the government building more community centers, cities, town halls, squares, parks are a good thing because it'll encourage tourism. It'll also improve the quality of life for a lot of people. So this kind of capex almost always has some kind of a good thing. But can you spend money retarring the same road over and over again? That does not help, right? So you can call it capex, but it's not really helping capex. You can break a road and build it again. That's also called capex, but it's not capex, good capex. So stuff that you're doing like that, I would say, broken window stuff. There's a broken window fallacy.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I recently read
Yeah, read
about
about
this.
it.
Yeah.
So somebody can break a window and it will give a window pane installer a job and make the owner spend that money, and some money is generated. But net you're at the same place, right? Doing the net same place thing is horrible. China did this a lot and they suffered because
Wow, the market is proper.
yeah, because what they did was they broke down bridges and reconstructed them because they wanted to give people jobs to do. Like, excuse me, what's the point of that? But they said that's the thing, and then they suffered for it in later points. Go now, China's government debt is one of the highest in the world compared to its GDP. We shouldn't be doing that. We have more important things to do. We have to build more bridges. We have a lot of bridges to build. So I think we should be doing that stuff.
Hmm. So one thing about the tax cut bit, my question. So last 2 years, में two big things happened. GST was cut and income tax cut happened, 7 to 12. Now that was the revenue for government which has gone away. Now how does the government make up for that revenue? Does because the expenses don't go down, I guess.
So let me ask you this in a different way. We have a lot of places where when prices are cut, they're cut for an objective. If I sell 100 pieces at 100 rupees, I make 10,000 rupees.
Hmm.
If I cut my prices to 75 rupees, and if I assume in my head that I'll sell the same 100 pieces, I'll make 7,500.
Yeah.
But why would I cut prices if I didn't think that I could sell 200 pieces? If I sell 200 pieces at 75 rupees, I make 15,000 rupees.
Right.
So maybe I make more profit because of higher economies of scale, or economic leverage, or even operating leverage. I may actually make more profits by selling 200 pieces at 75 rupees than I make profits at selling 100 pieces at 100 rupees, right? So, as the government reduces taxes, the idea is that the GDP will actually increase because more people will have more money in their hands to spend. The government, on the other hand, its spending nature is very slow and not as efficient. People spending is far more efficient. So let's let people have that. So the government will make more money because of more transactions that will happen. Even GST, at some point, it becomes cumbersome for people to bring that. And some of these elements that were cut were at extremely high rates. To give an example, I think cars were at 28 plus 22%. 50% was GST effectively, right? Why would you have that? They made 40%. 40% is still high, but at 40%, you're talking 10% less. So obviously, a lot more cars have sold.
Yeah, I mean Maruti had a great
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 run this
quarter. Yeah.
quarter,
Yeah.
and it's obvious they had 7 years of bad results, and suddenly 1 year the results have been good. Now you can obviously say, boss, they sold more cars, and obviously that helps their profits. That helps the amount of GST collected also. 40% of higher number is greater than 50% of a lower number. That, I think, the government will actually collect more GST despite the GST cuts, and more income tax because of the income tax cuts.
But so then this is a more longer thing than 2 quarter thing. It'll take 1 year, 2 year to show up
Yeah,
actually in
it
the.
takes every tax cut takes a little time because first people hoard money, then they spend money. So if I give you 100 rupees for free, the first 100 rupees you will hoard. Say, boss, I'm getting 100 rupees, let me keep it. Boss, something we don't know what will happen. But if I give you 100 rupees every month, then you're like, dude, I can take this. He's giving me 100 rupees every month, and I am reasonably confident that this will stay. He'll keep giving me this 100 rupees, so I can spend this money. And maybe the 100 rupees I'm giving you is a salary, it's not like for free, right? But the amount of after that first set of saving and doing only subsistence stuff, you'll be like, oh, this is more money than
You'll get more
you'll
confident
get
and
more
you'll.
confidence and you spend. So it takes 6 to 8 months for this confidence to build up into the system. And then it goes. In India, confidence is very low. Every government comes and changes tax rules every year. So you don't know what to do. You're like, boss, don't trust this government. Whatever is coming, keep in your bank account.
Mm.
So because you inherently do not trust that these benefits will stay, you inherently distrust um, all government initiatives by default. It takes a year for everybody to kind of settle down and say, okay, this is for real.
Right. Yeah, my question stemmed from the fact that FMCG companies seem to be not reporting a meaningful change in their
They were
numbers.
never going to. I think I don't know if I did an interview with you or somebody else at that time. I talked about this. I said cars will make a difference because the actual end price will come down. But your biscuit packet, which is 5 rupees, will remain 5 rupees. He'll put one extra biscuit.
Or they'll put it as 25% extra or something.
They'll try to keep it as 5 rupees. Now you're buying a unit which is 5 rupees. Do you care? It's not like if I go to a petrol pump and he tells me, you have to keep paying me 1,000 rupees. Now I'll give you 5 liters extra of petrol. That is useful for me because that 5 liters of extra of petrol takes me a little bit longer. Buy a packet of biscuits. One extra biscuit is not going to change my life, right? They use this mechanism on the other side. When prices went up for them, input prices, they reduced the number of biscuits.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
When they
That
said,
feels up.
yeah, that
Yeah.
felt stupid, but we're like, okay, theek hai. I mean, at least I'm not paying more from my pocket. Now I'm not paying less. So what difference does it make to me whether you got a GST cut or not? At some point, I don't care, right? So it is eventually downstream when somebody starts introducing 4 rupee packets that are good enough, then everybody will have to reduce price. But till then, they will try to protect their turf. And all FMCG damage happens 1 quarter after this. The first quarter, everybody watches. Then they say, listen, I can undercut my competition by reducing the price. Once I reduce the price, everybody has to reduce their prices. Then realizations across the board will go down. All their margins will collapse after this. They're still showing high margins, low growth. Tomorrow they will show slightly higher growth, but much lower margins. So FMCG has that problem, and you'll find this. I mean, the GST is not beneficial to FMCG. GST is much more beneficial to durables, to a GST cut, to durables, to services. We haven't cut services at all. So 18% is 18%. You make that 16%. Then you watch. Things will change so dramatically. Everything from haircuts to doctor appointments to everything. Just a 2% cut will change things.
All right. So one last question because you're short on time. You get a lot of volumes on the budget day. So if you have any, if you must have seen a lot of mistakes that traders make, investors make on the budget day. Anything to be aware of? Or
Yes, I think firstly reacting during the budget, especially like first this budget is on a Sunday. Sunday, the banks aren't open, the stock markets are open. So if I had to the FIIs and mutual funds are not going to be operational. They're not going to try and operate in this step. So you lose an entire batch of players who would otherwise be participating, right? So you're getting the feedback from mostly other retail traders. Assume that there's going to be a lot of volatility for no reason. Just because somebody is buying something doesn't mean that you should go buy it, because the sellers who would normally be selling are not there in the market. The sellers will bring the price down, but the buyers are taking the price up. Now there's no sellers, the price is going up a lot, right? So now just because something is going up, you shouldn't react, at least intraday for sure. You wait till Monday, nothing will happen. It's a big deal. Second thing is because the futures market, options market is also available. Again, over there, the institutional players, the ETF market makers, all of these guys are not going to be available. Your ability to trust the price meaningfully is bad. So you want to play this Sunday FNO market, if you may. You want to have guts of steel. That means you should be willing to lose 50% of your money, like literally. So if you don't have that, don't participate. I think one is that, because markets are volatile. Budget makes it more volatile. Then half the players are not in place. You don't want to deal with. Second thing is, don't believe anything that is said or perceived by news channels until the budget documents have been released, and then you've actually had a way to have a proper summary of it. So having knee-jerk reactions is a bad idea, especially to the speech. The important part to understand is this is more a directional budget. I mean, gives you a size of where the direction is going to be over the next few years, not a permanent kind of a thing. Almost all of anything crazy, you can assume that there will be a lot of discussion on it, and maybe it'll get modified also before the budget end. So don't react to these extreme pieces of information also. What is useful is to see whether the direction is good for a certain industry, and then think about whether the prices today are useful for you to think about even 1 year down the line. So a PLI in semiconductors that has increased a lot. There are some companies that are making semiconductors and the early stages of them. The idea is now the budget, does it help them? B, if the budget does help them, does the market and the company leadership itself understand, and maybe they'll give you a feedback on this. So you don't have to buy everything at the same time. You can say, listen, I like this, I'm going to buy a little small position right now, and then maybe add on once new things come and my way and all that. This idea that the budget is going to be the one and only day to invest, I think is a bad idea. It's just another day. It's just another you know, maybe fun day, and you're getting to trade on a Sunday, which is a bad idea for your family, but you're doing this. We don't trade at all on these days, whether it's the PMS or the mutual fund. So the mutual fund, in fact, the AMFI has declared it a non-business day, so you cannot buy a stock, a mutual fund. You can buy an ETF. The ETF market maker cannot create new units. So the ETF price itself can be very different from the underlying. So one thing there I would say is, if you're trying to buy an ETF, look at the INAV, the intraday NAV. That will tell you whether you're buying at a very high price or a low price. Only if it is close to where you're supposed to be. Just don't go buy like the Nifty piece or Nifty, whatever those these things are, right? The what are they called? The ETF name symbols. Just don't go buy them blindly. You have to be careful about what you buy and how you buy them. Uh, Also remember, gold and silver have gone through some massive these things. So if forget the budget, you might be using the date of the budget to figure out how you want to manage your silver position and gold position. But you can't buy gold and silver, you'll buy them only on the ETFs. Already the ETFs have diverged significantly from the underlying prices. On Sunday, expect it to get even worse. So therefore, you want to be careful in what you do. Don't do anything on a knee-jerk reaction. Anything that is serious and big can wait till Monday. So don't use this budget as a mechanism to revenge or do entertainment trading. If you're doing entertainment trading, think of when you go to a movie, you spend 1,000 rupees, right? But that's because you're happy with the entertainment you get for 1,000 rupees.
Yeah. Be okay to
If you
lose.
want to do markets entertainment, spend only that 1,000 rupees. Don't spend like 10 lakh rupees and then come and feel miserable about it. 1,000 rupees chalega. It's entertainment. Because you're dealing with the markets like entertainment, do it like that. But beyond that, I would say, for serious people, this is not the be all and end all of your decision making.
Right, right. Got it. Thanks for doing this. I mean, this was very helpful for me as well. So
Cheers. I hope it all goes well, man. I hope it's a fun budget.
yeah. Any one thing that you're actually hoping for that comes through in the budget?
Well, what can I say? I think the one thing that I feel that we should be doing is creating an Indian retirement account. Um, we'll probably not have it. But the idea that we can choose our own investments, whether the mutual funds, FTs also, or anything else, and not have to pay tax at entry, but pay tax at exit, not capital gains, but actual income tax only at exit. It's a great idea. It's done in most developed countries. India doesn't have an equivalent. NPS is a very shoddy equivalent. We should get rid of that phenomenon and move only to these. Remove the EPFO as a only compulsory source of retirement income, and say you can choose anything, your own retirement account, NPS or EPFO, based on who you are and what you are. A retirement account would be a great idea. The second thing would be to remove this taxation on FPIs. Although it hurts me as a mutual fund, as an investor, as a PMS, I think it's better to be along with the rest of the world than the only country that is behaving in a different way.
Got it. Thanks for doing this.
Thank you.